let's talk about Canon cameras and Canon lenses. Now, there's a lot of different things to say about this, so it might be a long video, but I'm going to sum it up to our recommendations for 99% of the people that are interested in iriscopes. Our recommendations are probably just good to just follow. And I'm not saying this because we're selling equipment, it's just ease of use in the clinic, price considerations, value. It's the recommendations I would give to me or a close friend or something like that. So there's a lot of different options available. There are compact bridge cameras where you can't change the lens. Forget those. We can't use them for iridology. Then you've got the DSLR and the mirrorless. And now those two will work most of the time, or are compatible most of the time. The EOS DSLR, those are the ones, it's more like the older style cameras, like the Canon D90 or 90D, D90, 700D, I think they're sometimes Rebel TXI, I'm not sure. The names change depending on where you are in the world, but just double check online what the equivalents are. Those will work, and you don't need an adapter for those because the 60mm lens that we recommend, it was designed for those types of cameras. The mirrorless cameras, and those are the ones that start with an M, like EOS M or EOS R. I haven't got much experience with the R, which is a new range, and I think they'll be perfectly compatible. They're just a lot more expensive, and there's not much need for it, but I'll go into that a little bit later. So the mirrorless cameras, and the latest ones are the Canon M50 Mark II and the M6 Mark II, which are both cameras. I like them. I've used both of them. I like them a lot. This is the M50 Mark II, and they work very well. They're actually better than the ones before, I feel anyway, especially with dark irises. They seem to be a little bit more sensitive in low light situations, so dark irises is quite good to have this camera, or those two cameras. Another consideration is full frame or APS-C, which is a slightly smaller sensor. So if you look at here, just in there, this is an APS-C, so it's slightly smaller than the full frame. Now, we recommend it, and I won't go into the technical details, but it's a little bit better. You have a little bit more depth of field, which is a larger area that will be in focus compared to a wider full frame sensor. And the full frame sensors are more expensive anyway. So if you have needs for a full frame sensor for other, like if you take landscape or if you do other professional photography, it is compatible with full frame, but it's not needed. If you have a full frame, you will just, in your photo of the iris, will have a little bit more of the eyelids, like what's outside of the iris, but that doesn't really matter. It's not going to add much benefit to you for iridology, but so that's the full frame and the APS-C sensor. So one small thing to pay attention is full frame cameras are normally not compatible with the DSLR full frame. So the 5D, the more professional cameras, the 5D Mark II or 3, or anyway, there's a few. I think there's the 6D, or anyway, if it says full frame and it's a slightly older camera, normally is not compatible with this because the lens, this part here of the lens, sticks out just a little bit too much for it to fit in those cameras. So the thing is, for iridology purposes, we use extension tubes. That's these two tubes here. And this makes them compatible. They will fit in there and they will work very well. I've tried, and I used for a while a 5DS, which is a professional camera, and it works. It's compatible. There's no need to go and get those expensive cameras for iridology reasons, but it is compatible. Normally it isn't, but with these tubes it is. Why is it not needed to spend a lot on a camera? Why do we not recommend getting the very expensive professional cameras, the full frame? It's because there's no benefit from an iridology point of view. The Canon 5DS has got 50 megapixels. It's got a big lens, a big sensor. It's got a lot of detail for in lots of situations. But with the Iris, it's not really that useful. And the reason why is I got the camera and tested it, and I could hardly see the difference between the entry-level 1300D, I think it was at the time, and the which was €300 or €400 at the time, I think, and the 5DS, which was I think 2,000 or 3,000 euros, maybe even more. And the reason why is, if you look at the Iris, if you kind of could have a very big Iris, you would actually notice that it's a translucent 3D structure. So it's like I sometimes call it like a bowl with gelatine in it, with spaghetti in it. You'll have fibers on the top, you'll have fibers in the middle, you'll have fibers further down, and it's translucent. There's light coming in from all angles, going into different pigments and things like that. This is a 3D structure. A photo is always going to be 2D. So what's going to happen is this Iris, all this information at different levels, is going to be squashed into 2 dimensions onto a photo. And what that does is it's always going to take information that's in front of the focus point and behind the focus point and squash them together. And so you'll always have, when you zoom into the photo, you will always see stuff that's not in focus. And there's no way around it. You can't minimize it. You can try and get the focus, the aperture, to kind of make it slightly smaller. That's slightly technical. You don't need to worry about it. But it doesn't really make much difference. I've done thousands and thousands of photos of testing to try and get the right settings and things like that. The reason why this 3D into 2D doesn't really have much of an effect is that you're just going to have a lot more megapixels for something that's out of focus anyway. So there's no need to spend thousands and thousands on very fancy, top-of-the-range professional cameras, because you won't see much difference in the end result. So we're recommending the cheapest cameras you can buy that are good quality, obviously, and that are compatible with the lighting system. Some of the entry-level cameras, the 2000D, the 4000D, the 150D, I think 250D, they're not compatible. And the reason why is, if you look at here, oops, let's get the camera in here, inside this hot shoe, which is the flash connector, there's a center pin. It's that little kind of whitish dot. It's a metallic dot, actually. This is the bit that the lighting system will use to send the flash signal to the lighting system. So this is the Iris Explorer, and one of those pins on here will connect onto that. The thing is, with those entry-level cameras, there is no center pin. They've taken it off. I don't know why Canon has done that. It makes them only compatible with Canon flashes. Anyway, but you won't be compatible. It is compatible with some of the older Iris Explorers we had, like the version 3 and 4. So if you have an older camera and you really want, like one of those cameras, and you really want, contact us. We may have in stock an older version that's available. So that's the center pin. Now we can talk about, older cameras versus new cameras. Now, if you've got an older camera which is maybe 5 or 10 years old, it is actually compatible, or most of the time it is compatible, depending on if you've got that center pin. But the older cameras will work. Like, I've had people who've got 15-year-old cameras. Was it a 300D or 200D or like some pretty old cameras, and they will work. You'll have less megapixels and it will be a lot less sensitive to dark irises, but it's maybe worth, like, if you want to keep it, give it a try. You probably will be happy with it kind of most of the time. It's only when you've got very dark irises that it'll be a bit more tricky. If you haven't got a camera, get the cameras we recommend. It will last a very long time. But if you can pick up a really old one for very, very cheap, or if somebody's going to give you a camera, why not? It will work. The other brands. So we regularly get questions about Nikon cameras or Sony cameras. Recently we've had a whole load of emails of people asking about Nikon cameras, and very sorry if we didn't respond to you straight away. I was waiting to make this video. It's tricky. It is possible, but it's tricky to make those cameras compatible. Now there is a Tamron lens, the 90mm, the new 90mm one, but I'm gonna keep it short. We don't recommend it. It's a lot more expensive, and we've helped probably about 5 people in the last 10 years to make their Nikon camera compatible, and most of them have said afterwards, when we kind of checked on them and see how they're doing, they just went, I should have just listened to you. I think the Canon route would have been easier. And it's small things that make a difference. It's when you take a photo, and you're in a clinic setting, you've got a client in front of you, you just want to focus on that person. You want to take a photo quickly and then get on with looking at their iris and talking to them. With some of these other cameras, it will do more searching. It will try a few times and it'll take photos and it won't be in focus the first time, so you'll have to go back and do it again. As a professional tool, you just want to get on and do your work. And having tested so many different cameras, so many different types of setups, different lenses, the 60mm lens from Canon is by far the best. You can get the 100mm from Canon to work, but it's complicated as well. So we don't recommend it. And having spent a lot of time trying to help people to make it compatible, getting adapters and different tubes and connectors, it takes a lot of time, and in hindsight people just say, yeah, I should have listened to you. So we're not going to be that available anymore to help people who really insist on getting their camera to work, just because as a professional tool you just want it to work as best as possible, and it's something you're going to use for many, many years. And if you count up all the mini headaches you're going to get from having something that's not quite compatible, I don't think it's the wisest decision. Is just follow our advice. I highly recommend it. I'm a practitioner as well, and it's what I would like to be hearing if I had a Nikon camera, for example, and I was trying to make it work. I would just like somebody to just say, get another camera, sell your camera, or keep it for whatever other reasons. Like, they're brilliant cameras, Nikon and Sony. It's just for your iridology practice, the Canon 60mm and thus a Canon camera is just by far better. Things to bear in mind in terms of the lens. So I was just talking about the 60mm lens is what we recommend. They've stopped making it. It's very frustrating. During the pandemic, I think they must have realized electronic components, there's a shortage and things like that. So they just went, okay, well, what are the lenses we don't sell maybe that often? And they've just killed off the production of it. I'm hoping something else will come up. I don't think so. And I was quite worried for months. I was going, what am I going to do? And I tested loads of other lenses that just weren't as good. And then I realized there's loads of really good lenses, 60mm lenses available on the second-hand market, refurbished, very good. They last a long time. These are tanks. They will survive a lot of harsh treatment. So what we do is we look around on eBay and other second-hand places, and we've got a few Canon suppliers that know that if they have a second-hand one that comes back from a shop that didn't sell it or whatever, So we get some of those, but we test them, we check them, and we only get the ones that are in very good condition. However, we've seen some very old ones who are not in very good condition, who just work really well. So, excuse me. So it's still the one we recommend. We're looking around. I think Canon has released some for the newer cameras, the Mirrorless R range, but the cameras are a lot more expensive. The lenses are a lot more expensive, and I'm hoping there's no need to go towards a lot more expensive equipment. I'm trying to keep this like the quality high but the budget low, and there's still loads available. So if you haven't got any in your area, we do sell them, but it probably is cheaper to have a look around near you. Just make sure you buy it from somebody who's got a good reputation on eBay, who's got lots of 5-star reviews, and if they say it's in good condition. I've never had somebody sell me a lens that was just plain out not working, or but anyway, there is a small risk, but it's pretty small. Things to, like I said, they're tanks. Now there are a few things that camera and lenses just do not like: salt water, damp, and sand. So don't take it to the beach. Like they're great for taking photos of family, like change the lens, or the 60mm lens. There's some very good portrait photos, but just try not to take it to a dirty, dusty place, or avoid letting your young kids play with it. You have to be careful keeping the inside clean, like this area here. You can clean it if it does get dirty, but it's a bit of a pain to have to clean. So just try and keep it as clean as possible. I think I've done everything related to cameras and lenses. The 50mm, the M50 Mark II, or the M6 Mark II, and then the 60mm lens. Now, with those mirrorless cameras, you will need an adapter. Now this is here. Canon does one. It's, I think, way too expensive for what it is, but Makey and Viltrox, and I think there may be a couple of other brands who make them as well, and they're very good. And they're like a third of the price of the Canon brand one. So with those mirrorless cameras, you need this adapter to make it compatible with the 60mm lens, which is an older type of adapter, mount, they call it. And then you need those macro lenses, and those are included with the lighting system. So you will just get the right, either it comes in one longer tube or two smaller ones. You just need to be 30mm further away from the camera, and that's why we have those macro lenses. Okay, if you need anything, kind of give a shout to our team. We'll answer by email, or we can set up a Zoom meeting. But I think this video probably contains all the questions I ever get about cameras and lenses. I've talked about in here, so that should kind of answer most of your questions. Anyway, have a good day.